Now, live from Whitney Media, 1460 WVOX, the Greenberg Report, with Greenberg Town Supervisor Paul Feiner. You can join in the conversation at 914-636-0110. Now on 1460 WVOX, here's Greenberg Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Good morning. I'm Paul Feiner. I'm Greenberg Town Supervisor, and we have an interesting program that I think will benefit many, many people, especially those with older family members or senior citizens who are listening to this program. DOROT, D-R-O-T, is a Hebrew word for generations. And in 1976, it inspired the founders of DOROT, then recent graduates of Columbia University's social work program, to pioneer an approach to serving older neighbors with the ultimate goal of alleviating social isolation. So they began in the Upper West Side with regular visits and food deliveries to the elderly, and the goal was to forge a bond between the generations. Since its founding, DOROT has achieved a reputation of excellence and innovation in the field of aging services, and my guest today is Patricia Harte, who is DOROT Westchester. So, Patricia, thank you very much for joining us.
It's great to be here with you. Thank you, Paul.
Could you maybe tell us a little bit about what DOROT is about and how Westchester residents could benefit?
Sure, I'd be happy to. DOROT Westchester started about 15 years ago with our Friendly Visiting Program, which is face-to-face visits to stem the tide of social isolation. Since the pandemic, we pivoted quickly and we morphed into telephone friends and caring calls, recognizing that for so many people not being able to get out, that the sense of loneliness and social isolation actually grew and has impacted so many more people now than it did previously. We have a program called Telephone Friends, which is similar to Friendly Visiting, where we match people. We match an older adult, older meaning 60 and better, who's interested in cultivating a connection with a volunteer, and then we look for a volunteer who has similar interests. The goal of that program for Telephone Friends is to have one-on-one telephone calls at least once a week, with the idea being that friendships could get established over the phone.
That is great. Do you have a lot of volunteers?
We do have a lot of volunteers. We always welcome other volunteers also who are interested in joining us. And there are many different ways that one can volunteer with DOROT Westchester and DOROT in general.
How do they go about volunteering for this program?
For the Telephone Friends, the best thing to do would be for a volunteer to call me, Cippi Harte. I have two first names, Pattie and Cippi. Cippi is my Hebrew name. And my DOROT cell phone is 914-573-8906. And I would be happy to share some information and gather some information and see how we can make a connection.
And during the COVID-19 pandemic, it's very difficult for many seniors because they can't be visited by family or friends, and they just may be in their apartment. So a call from a volunteer could really mean the world to them.
It does, and I have heard both from the volunteers' side that they're getting much more out of this than the senior is. And in some ways, a lot of our older adults are more used to not being out and about as much, which is very different than for our volunteers.
How much time does a volunteer have to spend on the phone call? Is it just saying, hi, how are you?
So our goal with these calls is really about the cultivation of a connection that's beyond, hi, how are you, in that our hope is that people would really begin to talk about their lives. A lot of our older adults have a lot of wisdom and life experience that they can share with a volunteer. We recently matched 2 social workers. There was a retired social worker from an agency here in Westchester who she's new to DOROT since the pandemic, and we actually have a social worker volunteer who is making the calls. And so we try to kind of get a sense of what somebody's interests are to try to help facilitate those conversations.
We have to take a couple-minute break, and
Okay.
we'll be back in about 5 minutes, and we're going to talk about DOROT Westchester with Pattie Harte. Thank
Great,
you very
thank you.
much. We'll be right back in a couple minutes.
WVOX. Now back to the Greenberg Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenberg Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Good morning. I'm Pattie Harte of DOROT Westchester, and we're talking about programs that help the elderly. And we were talking about an effort that people could participate in, where they would be matched with a senior who has similar interests, and hopefully lasting friendships could be made. You have some other programs. Could you tell us about some of the other programs that DOROT Westchester offers?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So one of them is DOROT in the city and DOROT Westchester are all connected. And we've had programs on site in our offices, both here in Westchester and in the city. But we have a department of on-site and at-home programs. And with the pandemic, we moved from the on-site programs in our physical space to doing them on Zoom and people could be on the phone if they don't have the technology. And so there's a calendar that's on our website, and it's at DOROT Programs, DOROT Programs at DOROTUSA.org. And programs range, there's exercise programs, there's guided meditation, breath, breathe, stretch, shake it out, let it go. There's stretch and strengthen. Recently we had Moore Chamsky from the New York Mets did a program. There was a cartoonist that did a program. There are virtual museum visits. There's book groups. There's a program called College Behind Bars, current events, sports history discussion group. There's a very wide range of programs, and with a whole array of people who are teaching and leading them. And because we can do it on Zoom, we really have the capacity to include a very wide range of people, and people can be anywhere. We also have staff that can help people learn how to put Zoom onto their devices and how to use Zoom. So
let me ask you a follow-up question. Let's say there's some seniors who I know who don't even know how to put on a computer and could they be participating in some of these programs by phone?
Yes. So the way to do that, so the way Zoom works is that there's always phone numbers that one can call and access that way. So that's a way to do that.
So, for example, if there's a class on stretching or any, they basically would put on Zoom and they could stretch and watch everybody else stretch at the same time.
If they have the computer, and if they don't have the computer, that they could do it just with the phone. In that respect, and we also have another program. It's called our University Without Walls, which is really about lifelong learning. Just because somebody might not have the mobility to get out and about, or right now there's so many people that are home, our University Without Walls program also has lots of different classes, and those classes are kept very small in order to facilitate conversation. There's one called Pearls of Wisdom, Love in All the Right Places. There's a short story discussion group. There are health and wellness programs. They have guided meditation. There are museum discussions about the women of the Whitney Museum or Piet Mondrian's Visible Ideals. There's some food-related
That's
things.
Great. There was once a slogan, you don't have to be Jewish to love rye bread. And since DOROT was formed by the Jewish community, do you have to be Jewish to participate in the programs?
Definitely not. While we are an agency under Jewish auspice, we serve everybody. And here in Westchester, we serve all of Westchester from all 450 square miles of Westchester. And if anybody's interested in additional information about some specifics or anything else, they can really call me at 914-573-8906, and I'm happy to talk with anybody individually about what our programs are and how one can get involved.
Do you get any funding from the county office of aging or the state or federal government?
Well, yes, we do. So the way the Office for the Aging, so the Federal Office on Aging actually gives money to the states gives it to the county, and the counties give it to agencies that are running programs. So we do get money from the Westchester County Department for Programs and Services.
And do you expect with the state budget cuts that DOROT could see a decline in the revenue that you've gotten in the past?
We hope not. But you raise an interesting point, and I think it's important to mention that we do not charge for our programs and services. It's a service to the community, to all people in the community, and so we do grant writing and foundations. We get bequests. We do some direct mail, but we don't charge for the programs and services. So for people that might not have the resources or be concerned about that, that's not an obstacle at all to participating with DOROT.
And are there waiting lists for some of these classes? Because you mentioned that they were very small, some of the classes, so there'd be more interaction between the students and the teachers. And I'm wondering how hard it is to get into one of the classes.
So the University Without Walls does have limitations in terms of the size of those classes. And if anybody is interested in terms of registration or information about the University Without Walls, they can call 1-877-819-9147. And if they can always leave a message if nobody answers that phone. We've all had all of our phones transferred to our home phones at the moment, but most of us are on the phone quite a bit of the time and getting information. So the University Without Walls does have limitations in terms of the size of the classes. The on-site programs at home does not.
Right. You also have a holiday package delivery program. Could you tell us about that?
Sure. So 3 times a year we do holiday package deliveries. We do it in the fall for the Jewish New Year, although it's a program that is open to all of our older adults. We do one in the winter, and then we do another one in the spring around the Passover holiday time. And the packages include things that are related to both the season and the holiday. And we've been in conversations right now about how we're going to handle the Rosh Hashanah Jewish New Year package delivery. Letters will go out to all of our seniors asking them if they'd like to have a package. And the way we're handling it this year because of the pandemic is those packages are going to be actually drop-offs, and then there will be a phone call visit to accompany that.
Hey, we have to take another break, and we'll be back in a few minutes. I'm Paul Feiner, Greenberg Town Supervisor. We're talking about DOROT. It's a group that helps our elderly residents enjoy their quality of life from their home.
1460 WVOX.
Now back to the Greenberg Report on 1460 WVOX Once again, here's Greenberg Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
I'm Paul Feiner. I'm the Greenberg supervisor, and we're talking with Pattie Harte, who is the head of the DOROT Westchester branch, and DOROT provides intergenerational activities to seniors, and also great opportunities for volunteers who want to do something meaningful, helping a senior citizen enjoy their life. And you don't have, although it's funded by Jewish agencies, in part, and also with grants, you don't have to be Jewish to participate or to volunteer. And Pattie, could you just tell us again how people could contact you?
Sure. My cell phone is 914-573-8906, and I'm going to give you
and the website is DOROT, DOROTUSA.org.
Correct. And the main DOROT phone number in the city is 212-769-2850, and anybody can call and leave a message for what they're looking for, whether they're looking for the University Without Walls classes or the on-site at-home program. And they will be, somebody's checking that voicemail box on a regular basis right now.
I'm wondering, with COVID-19, there's not that many jobs available for young people this summer. And if somebody's home from college, do you have internships?
We do. We have summer college internships, and we also have a summer teen internship program. At this point, all of those are filled. Okay.
The other interesting program that I read about was your intergenerational after-school chess program.
Great. Thanks for bringing that up. So we've started an intergenerational chess program. It started in the city, and we just finished our 4th year here in Westchester with intergenerational chess. And we have a chess instructor that does some instruction. The older adults don't need to know how to play chess, but just be interested in learning to play chess, but also in engaging in conversation with a high school student. And at this point, this past year, we had a lot of the high school students graduating, so we are looking for more high school students to participate in the fall. And we're always looking for adults 60 and better who either know how to play chess and would enjoy an intergenerational opportunity to join us. And again, people can call me for that information and to get more details about that. We do have applications for both the adults and for the youth.
Will those programs be done by Zoom also?
It's not clear yet. So what happened in March when we started working remotely, we switched the intergenerational chess program from in-person every week to virtual. A lot of the young people were able to help our older adults get Zoom onto their computers and how to use Zoom. And we ended up with probably about 20 people each week who were participating virtually. And because of the way Zoom works, we could be able to have the lesson at the beginning, have some conversation, and then we broke people up into the breakout rooms to actually play chess, and then brought people together at the end. At this point, we don't know exactly what's going to happen in the fall, whether or not we're going to be able to resume right away in person, or we're going to have to start virtually with the hope that we can go in person as soon as possible.
Right, this pandemic is really inconveniencing and disrupting so many lives. And one of the big advantages of DOROT is social connections are, for everybody, a vital part of life. But for older adults who live alone, it's so important to have a lifeline. And I think seniors who participate in DOROT's programs are able to enjoy their lives much better. So this is, it just means an awful lot, to people. You also have a very interesting project. It's called the Legacy Project, And could you tell us about that?
Sure. The Legacy Project is within a department called Lasting Impressions, and it's an opportunity for a senior to work with a volunteer to capture their life experiences that they would like to commit to either paper or it could be auditory to share with their families and with the DOROT archives. And
right.
So usually, if it's something in writing, it's often somewhere between 5 to 6 pages. Some of our seniors have wonderful artwork that they've done that also tells the story of their lives. It could be with photographs or recipes. So it really can run the gamut in terms of the content that would be gleaned by the volunteer in talking with the senior and pulling this together.
It's sort of interesting because earlier this morning I wrote to some of the town board members. Today is Juneteenth, which is the celebration of the end of slavery, and I thought that there may be some senior citizens in Greenberg who remember talking to their grandparents who might have had relatives or parents or grandparents or great-grandparents who were slaves, or there may be albums in people's homes dealing with slavery, and I thought it would be really interesting if the town would be able to capture those an interview for our library and public access TV and for the county archives. So it's sort of a little similar. We sort of forget. We're not taking advantage of the memories of many of our older people. Are some of the Legacy Project initiatives going to be shared with the county archives, historical archives?
Well, we certainly would be happy to ask the senior if they would be willing to have that happen. It's really theirs and DOROT's, but the senior would have to give permission for that to happen. But I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and I was even thinking there's a lot of people in Greenberg who grew up in the South, and they might have had to sit in the back of a bus. They might have been separate and equal requirements. They might have been bullied or profiled or arrested, wrongly, and it would be just really interesting to hear their stories and to record them so future generations will understand what the current generations, have lived through. We have a Veterans Living History initiative in the town, a Holocaust Living History where we've interviewed Holocaust survivors, and a 9/11 Living History. So, I'm really glad that DOROT's involved in this. What got you involved in this organization?
Well, I was actually living on the Upper West Side in 1976 when DOROT started, and some of the people I was friendly with were involved in starting DOROT at that time. And so I've known about DOROT since it started in 1976. And when I moved here to Westchester 15 years ago, I had no idea that DOROT was here. And somebody sent me this job description for my job as the Westchester director for DOROT about 5 years ago, and I had no idea that DOROT was here in Westchester. So I was delighted. I applied and got the job and realized that so many people don't know that DOROT exists here in Westchester, and so we're really working hard to try to get the word out about our programs and services and to try to reach people in a whole array of ways.
We have to take one last break, and I'll be back in it with Pattie Harte of DOROT Westchester. I'm Paul Feiner.
WVOX. Now back to the Greenberg Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenberg Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Good morning. I'm Paul Feiner. I'm the Greenberg Town supervisor, and we're talking with Pattie Harte about DOROT, Westchester. And as I mentioned before, DOROT works with older adults who are between 60 to over 100. Most people are probably in the 80s with many programs. And Pattie, the seniors who you work with, they may vary in physical mobility. So you may have people who are, can't walk, and others who are much healthier, right?
Correct. There's no requirement to have any kind of issues in any way, shape, or form. Some people, when they stop driving, end up being less mobile because they don't have the car that they can just hop in and out of. And so that's a big adjustment when people do stop driving. And so a lot of our programs and services really are geared towards somebody like that. And then we have people who are still driving, who are active, but who doesn't want to have a new friend? Right. I think that you can't have enough people in your life that you can talk to and share with, and it's always good to get different perspectives on things by talking to people, and that's where our Telephone Friends program is so great. And we also do information and referrals. So there are times that we'll get calls from people and say, I'm having some challenges with cooking my meals. Can you help with some suggestions for how to do that? Or right now we've been offering people suggestions about resources to get their groceries, or making sure that people have, medication being delivered. So
do you have volunteers who will get groceries for people?
We actually refer out to other agencies as opposed to having our own volunteers, but there are places here in Westchester that can provide those services.
Right, and now it's much easier than it was at the beginning of COVID, because there's so many services that provide. So many of the supermarkets have deliveries. Also, the DOROT, they have a Days of Beauty program. You offer that in Westchester?
So we have not offered that in Westchester. It's being offered in the city, and right now with the pandemic, it's on hold.
Right, and that's a program where they offer beauty services to low-income elders, hairstyling, coloring, manicures, pedicures, but you're always looking for ways to enhance people's lives. What about seniors who have memory issues? Do you have any programs like that?
So we do have a number of our older adults who do have some memory issues. And, depending on the degree to which, if they can remember somebody who's going to call them once a week, then that's a good person for us. For some of our seniors who've been with us for a long time, one of the things that we've learned is that music comes from the other side of the brain than language. And we have volunteers who either play music or sing to people. We've been doing it now over the phone as a way to engage people who do have memory issues. But again, we have places that we can refer people to other agencies and other programs that are addressing issues of memory.
I know that a lot of governments, looking for ways of enhancing people's quality of life. Would you have any suggestions, Greenberg, what we could do that we're not doing at the present time?
Well, so one of the things that there are times we get calls from people and saying, I don't have any family, I live alone, I would love to have somebody who could check in on me every day or every other day. So some communities, the fire department does it. Some communities, the police department does it. Some communities, they might have a volunteer crew. But, they don't necessarily want more than that, and they want something very regular. I don't know that anything like that. I haven't heard of anything like that happening in Greenberg. yet.
We have, through our senior programs, we do check up on people, but most people who are seniors are not enrolled. You have like an active senior population, and we're following up on them. And there's also programs in the town where people, if they have major medical issues, they could let us know. And if there's a Con Ed shutdown or power outage, then we'll make sure that they get the services they need. It is. I remember one year there was a hurricane, and some people needed oxygen. Were living with oxygen tanks, so we were able to help seniors. During that crisis. You also have partnerships with other organizations, and could you just discuss the partnerships?
So, there are things that DOROT does and things that DOROT doesn't do, and so we have connections with lots of different organizations and agencies that we might be able to refer people if it's not appropriate for us, or if the needs are different. Sometimes we find that there are seniors who are looking for elder care attorneys. So we've created a list of elder care attorneys or home care agencies or counseling therapists who do home visits or now telehealth. And so we can always provide that, so that our partnership runs pretty broadly throughout Westchester. And hopefully we'll get referrals from those agencies, too, if there are things that we might be able to offer to people.
Right. If somebody wants a list of activities or classes or whatever, is there like a e-list where they could sign up and get, frequent updates or monthly updates? Sure.
Well, so for the on-site at-home programs, the website that one can sign up is DOROT programs at dorotusa.org. And in terms of for the University Without Walls, there's either the phone number of 877-819-9147, and the website, the email there is uww@dorotusa.org.
Right. We're running out of time. I just want to thank you. My guest has been Pattie Harte, who heads up the DOROT Westchester, and it's an amazing organization. You could learn more about DOROT by looking at their website, www.dorotusa.org. And there's a link to the Westchester division of DOROT. So thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for all you do to enhance the lives of our senior citizen population.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Paul Feiner, Greenberg Town Supervisor.